Hello and thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Bite-Size Cybercrime, the podcast where we discuss cybercrimes and cybersecurity news. This week, we're going to be discussing a data breach that unfortunately led to the leak of very sensitive content for the victims, including personal medical information and nude photos taken of the patients during plastic surgery consultations. This is probably the last kind of data you would want leaked of yourself online, especially because plastic surgery is already a bit of a taboo subject. These images have been confirmed to have been leaked on the internet, and I ask you to please respect the privacy and dignity of the victims. I will not be sharing any identifying information on these patients, even though some of the names have been used in news articles about the case. I have opted not to read them, given the sensitive nature of the breach. Now that that's out of the way, let's discuss the hack itself. So, what exactly happened, and why did this medical office have nude photos of patients that hackers were able to steal? The office in question is Hankins and Sohn Plastic Surgery Associates in Las Vegas, and the attack itself actually happened in the beginning of this year, all the way back in February of 2023. The initial method of hacking into the network is unknown, although I would likely attribute it to phishing and potentially other vulnerabilities in the network that were able to be exploited by attackers. Once they were in the network, attackers were able to download sensitive patient data, which included names, social security numbers, contact information, dates of birth, driver's license information, medical history, consultation notes, and of course the nude photos. Now, it actually does make sense for a plastic surgery place to have these images for before and after pictures. It's not the most unusual thing for doctors to keep photos from procedures, especially in cases where aesthetics are going to be a consideration for customers. What is unusual, though, is that these pictures had the patient's face in them, and they were not anonymized in any form. Patients' faces should have been cropped out if possible, if not, identifying information should have been censored, and they should have been stored in a different database anonymously, not connected to existing personally identifiable information, specifically to avoid attacks like this. Unfortunately, this was not the case here, and it led to some considerable fallout. Hankins and Sohn began notifying victims of the breach March 14, 2023, and later, some victims were even contacted by the attackers themselves. The unknown hacking group tried to get the plastic surgery office to pay up a ransom in exchange for not leaking the data, but the attackers did not get the payment that they wanted and began leaking the data. One of the women who was a victim in the breach received a message from the hackers, threatening to distribute the sensitive data. She refused to pay up, and the hackers shared her information, including the photos taken during her consultation, with her friends, colleagues, and neighbors. Scams about threatening to leak someone's sensitive photos are not uncommon, but they're typically pretty unfounded and just trying to make a quick buck. So I assume a lot of women may have just thought this was a scam at first, and had no idea the attackers were being completely serious. Other victims also spoke up about similar experiences, having their photos, contact information, birthdays, and phone numbers shared with people they know, and also posted on a leak website. Another victim also received an email linking this leak site with her pre- and post-op photos, and the hacker said they would remove the images if she paid them $800. So, it seems even though the attackers did not get what they wanted from Hankins and Sohn, they decided to further extort the victims of the attack, which is relatively uncommon, although, of course, all the contact information was right in the breach. This was pretty easy to do, and was another method of getting even more money from the incident. These types of attacks are not theoretical, and they can happen to anyone. These victims did nothing wrong, and they still had some of their most private information exposed to the world, which was humiliating and embarrassing for them. Humiliation is not the worst that can happen from this breach, however, but the victims are also at a risk of harassment due to their contact information being leaked. This paired with their photos is the perfect recipe for harassing phone calls and emails. And worst of all, identity theft can be committed using their social security number, birthday, and full name. Even if identity theft does not occur now, it could happen years down the line, even once the victims believe themselves to be safe. One victim claimed hackers even accessed her bank account, likely using the personal information to use the forgot password function and get in, and withdraw $1,000. The number of known victims is currently in the dozens, although 12,000 patients at most could be impacted. Although it's a smaller breach, those impacts are devastating and have deeply affected those involved already. The threat actors responsible have also claimed that Hankins and Sohn were not cooperating with their demands, and so more patient details and photos will be posted. This has yet to occur yet, but given what has already been posted, I am inclined to believe that it will. Recently, a class action lawsuit was filed against Hankins and Sohn, claiming that they were negligent in protecting their personal information. Hankins and Sohn is accused of having inadequate cybersecurity practices and protocols necessary to protect protected health information. The FBI also got involved and is investigating both the breach and the extortion attempts. They did succeed in taking down one of the websites sharing the photos, but those photos have already been copied and spread to other areas of the internet, and, well, another site could crop up any moment. This case demonstrates the importance of cybersecurity and how it has real-world impacts. It also demonstrates a very uncomfortable fact, that you can do everything right and still become the victim of a cyber attack. You have to rely on the organizations you go to adequately protect your information. However, it can be sometimes very difficult to do that. A lot of medical software may be difficult to patch due to it running on a special operating system, and it may be end-of-life and very expensive to replace, leaving vulnerabilities available for attackers to exploit. Many medical facilities use old software that may be vulnerable because their options are pretty limited and they simply can't afford to replace incredibly expensive equipment and software. Although this is still a very extreme example of a hack revealing sensitive personal and medical data. Still, I hope the victims are able to see justice in some form. This case was a terrible handing of personal medical information from a place that they trusted. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Bite Size Cybercrime, and another thanks to Bitdefender, Malwarebytes, and Fox 5 Vegas for reporting on this incident and the class action lawsuit. Although we don't know a lot about the technical details of this case, I believe it's equally important to discuss why we even have cybersecurity practices in the first place. To protect sensitive data, and an extreme example of what can happen when those protections fail. My name is Chloe Tonis, and until next time, stay secure.